An astute watcher of yesterday's video noticed that I referred to the author of Hebrews as she. Why did I do that? So it's been long known that the author of the epistle to the Hebrews is anonymous. Nobody signs their name at the front or back of the letter. The early church attributed it to Paul, though that was contested from very, very early on. Eusebius and a few other church fathers are like, not so sure it's Paul. And there's good reasons for doubting that. The style is different. Literarily, like the Greek composition is a lot better than Paul's writing. It's kind of considered a classical masterpiece. And then, like, why would the name be dropped? Like, Paul signed all of his letters. If somebody wanted to, impress somebody, they could borrow the name of Paul. That was an accepted practice in the 1st, 2nd century. So why is there no name? A theory that has been proposed, and is not like a wacko theory that's being put out there, is that it was written by like a companion of Paul, such as Priscilla and Aquila. Priscilla and Aquila spent about 18 months in Corinth with Paul. They were also tent makers. They had been kicked out of Rome due to persecution and kind of joined Paul in his church planting activities. Most of the time in the New Testament, it lists Priscilla and Aquila, so female, male, which would be unusual. Usually you would list the male first when listing like a couple, except it seems that Priscilla was the one who took most of like the leadership, church planting, and teaching responsibilities for that couple. It's pretty substantial archaeological and historical evidence that there was some woman named Priscilla who was a big deal in the Roman church in the 1st century. We find some like burial evidence, some like things that are like engravings, burials, things like that there was a woman named Priscilla who was a big deal. And the other thing that we know from the 1st centuries is that the involvement of women in the leadership of the church was unfortunately like suppressed pretty quickly. And so like names got changed in how like the New Testament scribes would like make copies. They would either drop names or change names, or there are later copies of like the handwritten copies of the New Testament that would switch the name order of Aquila first, then Priscilla, to sort of be like, well, we don't want anybody to get the wrong idea and think that a woman could be listed first. Within the book of Hebrews itself, it slides between I and we language, which is unusual. So it's possible that it was written by a couple who interchange between the I and we language. And there's also some evidence that the book of Hebrews, like the Hebrews chapter 11, which is like that hall of faith, emphasizes some female heroes of the faith and actually suppresses some of the male language. So it refers to stories from the Hebrew Bible, but doesn't actually use the male name. So you put that and a bunch of other evidence together, and the idea is Priscilla and Aquila, they wrote this letter. The early church maybe sort of erased the fact that it was Priscilla who wrote it, and that allowed it to get kind of passed on through the generations. Anyway, it's just a theory until we actually find like the original autograph of the book of Hebrews. We're never actually going to know, but it's a theory that I particularly enjoy. It does line up with a good amount of evidence, and I will refer to the author of Hebrews as she.